Hello everyone, it is your favorite man-made disaster Keki here, and every couple of years I get really into Pokémon. Now, I've never actually gotten to play a Pokémon game yet, but I was, and honestly still am, a huge fan of the anime, with X and Y being my favorite iteration. I end up rewatching the series every couple years, and with this past rewatch came the idea of, what if I took what I'm doing now and shoved nostalgia down its throat? So today, I am drawing Aphmau characters as if they were Pokemon trainers. I ended up drawing way more than I normally do for these types of videos, so this is gonna be kind of a long one, so strap in, grab a snack, and let's catch 'em all! I started thinking about what Pokemon would suit each character based on vibes and abilities. I also took into account the many versions of the My Street characters from across the wider Aphmau universe, like Diaries and a couple of the Kokomau character dynamics. For Aphmau, I decided her partner Pokemon would be a Litwick, not just because Litwick is my personal favorite Pokemon, but because it reminded me of her connection to Irene. When I think of goddess-type characters, I tend to gravitate towards the grand cathedrals with fancy chandeliers and prayer candles. Litwick literally turns into a chandelier in its final evolution, so it's kind of perfect in a way. Not to mention, Litwick is a ghost-type Pokemon, which I thought fit well with Aphmau and Irene's whole aesthetic. Gee, I wonder why. In this drawing, Aphmau stayed as a regular trainer. I tried to emulate the Pokemon art style with these drawings, but I'm not really sure how well that came across. I gave her back her bandana she gives to Aaron in Phoenix Drop, and I made her outfit as close to her classic My Street Season 3 look as possible, but with some light upgrades. Her Pokeball holder on her thigh is themed after Sprinkles, cause haha, reference I guess, and it's the same with her fanny pack. Honestly, what I would give to have that Sprinkles fanny pack in real life, Jess, please! Anyway, Aphmau is actually pretty simple, so there's not much more to say about her, so let's move on to the next character. I made Aaron a more classic trainer, more based off of Red from the original games due to his protagonist nature. I feel kinda bad because he looks a little bit too similar to X and Y Ash, but I guess it's okay. I made his Pokemon companion a Lycanroc. I think it's pretty obvious as to why it's a Lycanroc, but I'll explain my joke and then make it 10 times funnier, I guess. Aaron's last name in My Street is Lycan. He is also a werewolf. Aaron is the Ultima and has red eyes. Lycanroc has a red evolution. Applause. Anyway, there wasn't any deep reason as to why I chose Lycanroc for him, I just thought it was funny. I guess. Also, Aaron having a Lycanroc reminds me of the dog he had when he was younger, so let's just say that in this universe, his dog was a Rockruff that evolved into his Lycanroc. I kept Aaron's black and red color scheme while throwing in a couple of reddish grays for his bag and shoes. On a side note, drawing shoes for these characters was actually really fun and has totally reconstructed my drawing knowledge for drawing shoes, so thank you Pokemon, I guess. Now that Aaron is done, let's keep this ball rolling. For Katelyn, I knew I wanted to lean into her more athletic side and made her specifically a fighting type trainer. I'm honestly still debating on whether she's an actual gym leader or not, but that can be up to you guys in the comments if you want. Her partner Pokemon is Sock, and yes, it is for the exact reason you think it is, so there's really no point in me trying to fake a deeper meaning to this choice. Sock is blue, and a fighting type, bam, match made in heaven. Also, I believe Sock can learn Fire Punch and Sword and Shield, which for those unaware is a callback to Caitlyn's title in Minecraft Diaries, Katelyn the Fire Fist. What was the most difficult with this drawing actually was her colors. For a majority of these drawings, I was color dropping from the Pokemon to use on the trainers just so they all kind of looked cohesive, but with Katelyn and Sock, their shades of blue were just ever so slightly off between her hair and Sock's, Poke clothing, I guess. In the end, I decided to use Caitlyn's hair color to sub in for her shorts, and it ended up working a lot better. I also just want to point out that all My Street characters have those same stupid swoopy bangs from the 2010s, so I made a couple changes to some characters' hair so that it aligns more with Pokemon design conventions. And she's done! So, Travis. I actually really liked Travis in later seasons of My Street. Season 1 Travis was, and still is, a little off-putting, but hey, what can you do about that? For Travis's partner, I had a bit of trouble figuring it out at first. I knew I wanted some connection to the Demon Warlock since that plot point was prevalent in both My Street and Diaries, so I figured ghost types were my best bet. While scrolling through a list of ghost types I found online, I actually came across Mimikyu, the disguise Pokemon, and my brain suddenly attached to the idea. In My Street, the Demon Warlock is seen to use Travis and his father Terry as, what are essentially walking meat suits, and using them as his disguise through the entirety of Season 5 and 6 of My Street. In Diaries, Travis is the son of the original Demon Warlock and has to hide his demon heritage with the human disguise, and it's freaking genius! Also, with Mimikyu being a fairy type, it happens to have moves like baby doll eyes, and I can't put my finger on why that fits Travis. I guess we'll never know. There is also the fact that Mimikyu, in concept, is a very lonely Pokemon. Its dex entry across most regions state that it wears the Pikachu costume in order to not scare or even kill people with its terrifying appearance, and for most iterations of Travis that are often story-driven, I feel as though he'd sympathize with Mimikyu and appreciate its efforts to gain people's love. Travis's colors were basically just Mimikyu's but with some green, and honestly I think it turned out pretty awesome. It's now time for one of my favorite characters, Kawaii-chan. Or KC. Or Nana, or whatever you call her now. It's time for my queen to take the center stage, literally. Usually, if I'm transmigrating other characters from one universe to another, I'll try to make them as accurate as possible. But since Keki is a Mifla, I felt it more difficult to remove such an integral part of her character design. So, I did end up keeping her as a Mifla, but let's be completely honest here, a cat person is not the strangest thing people in the Pokemon universe have seen, so it's fine. For her partner Pokemon, I decided on Esper. Esper is a pure psychic type that was introduced in Generation 6. In the few dex entries it has, Esper is constantly struggling to control its psychic power, which is conveyed through its usual blank face. Esper's lack of control over its powers kind of brings me back to when Kawaii-chan asked Zane to teach her how to be serious, but it ended up failing miserably, so with both her and her Pokemon needing an outlet for their performative chaos, I made them a duo of Pokemon performers. Pokemon performances are a little bit different to the Pokemon contests of the Hoenn region, but this type of acting and pizzazz is what I thought suited Keki best. Also, her stage name is Kawaii-chan, and her real name will stay as Nana. Also, look at Esper's shiny. Nuff said. I based her outfit off the Pokemon designs the fairy-type gym leader makes in the X and Y anime since I figured it helped me ground my design in the universe. As to why it's a Sylveon, that is a perfect segue to our next character. Zane, my other favorite character. The basic thought process for Zane's design and partner Pokemon came to me almost immediately when I started to plan this video. I wanted Zane to keep his dark and standoffish vibe the same way he has in My Street and his obsession with cute things. So I dubbed thee a Sylveon owner. I like to think that Zane originally had an Eevee that he swore to everyone was going to evolve into like an Umbreon or something, but it ended up evolving into a Sylveon since he was so close to it. He'd also never admit that he thinks it's the cutest Pokemon ever, but that's just a headcanon of mine. I gave Zane a scarf mask rather than the regular mask I usually draw him with since I didn't really see those kinds of masks depicted too frequently in the Pokeverse. Plus, it makes drawing expressions way easier. And easy is the way we go here. Another thing some eagle-eyed viewers may or may not have already picked up on color palette-wise is that Zane and Kawaii-chan are actually wearing each other's partner Pokemon on their clothes. Zane is wearing a hoodie and scarf that emulate Esper's colors, and Keki is wearing a Sylveon-themed performance outfit. Why, you may ask? Because I said so. I like to think that Zane is a Pokemon performance blogger and goes in undercover to rank each performance on his website, and that's where he actually met Kawaii-chan. Yes! Even in Pokemon, my love for Zana never stops. Anyway, Zane is done, so let's move on to someone completely different. Well, kinda. Alright, it's Kim time! I was actually a little bit stumped at first when it came to Kim's role and Poke partner, but I knew it had to have something to do with ghosts and possession, because how on theme is that? Kim was not a character in Diaries, so there wasn't really anything for me to take inspiration-wise from that source, but Kim is in the Aphmau videos, and from my brief viewing of the videos with Kim in them, I was able to deduce that she likes science. I think. Don't quote me on that. I figured I'd make her a Pokemon professor and made her partner Pokemon Rotom. It was honestly kind of perfect since Rotom's whole shtick is that it can possess different types of machinery to change its physical typing. Kinda like Sword and Shield's terrestrializing gimmick before Sword and Shield was even a thing. Rotom is also seen with Professor Oak in the anime, so it seemed within reason. I did actually have a bit of trouble distributing Kim and Rotom's colors when the time came. I kept going back and forth between the color of her shoes and underskirt, and let me tell you, this time-lapse does not do those lost hours justice. It took forever. And that's why color trouble is actually the theme of today's video, with our next Pokemon trainer not helping in the slightest. Our favorite Minecraft witch, Lucinda. I'll get into how her colors had me pulling my hair out later, but let's focus on her partner Pokemon for right now. I had a thought about giving her an owl Pokemon like Hoot Hoot or Rowlet just because of her owl familiar she has in diaries, but I wanted something with a bit more witchy flair, if you know what I mean. And what's more witchy than the Pokemon often nicknamed the Forest Witch, Hatterene, the silent Pokemon. Hatterene and Lucinda's color aesthetic doesn't really match that well, but I've seen worse from Pokemon, so who really gives a crap? Hatterene's evolutionary line is very sensitive to noise and heightened emotions, and with Lucinda's calm and relaxed demeanor for the majority of the shows she appears in, I felt like she'd have no issues owning a Pokemon from this line. I also figured that Psychic Fairy would be a useful type combo for Lucinda's particular line of work. I ended up keeping her color scheme black, yellow, and red just because I really did try to make Hatterene's colors work on her, I promise, but to no avail. So we stick with what we know looks best for her, and it doesn't look as bad as I thought it would. Her outfit silhouette-wise was supposed to mimic Hatterene's with her flowy pants and her hood that looks like a witch hat, and honestly, it works. She slays, so we take the win where we can. It's time for Laurance. Now, before we get into this section, I just want to preface this by saying no matter how you feel about his voice actor, in this video we are talking about the fictional character that is Laurance. If you want to talk about this, do it on Twitter, not in my comment section. Alright, so, Laurance! I like his character when he actually shows up in my street, but there's much more content surrounding his character in diaries. I originally had his partner be a Murkrow to harken back to his wyvern companion Ungirth, but that for some reason didn't sit well with me. I eventually realized I was taking way too much from diaries and pushing away from the points of Laurance that actually made me like his character in the first place. So I took to Twitter and asked you guys what Pokemon you'd think he would have, and someone actually suggested Alcremie. I had actually completely forgotten that Laurance is described as an incredible cook, so thank you to the people who reminded me about that. So, with that in mind, I decided on Alcremie and a chef/baker motif for him. And then came the issue of which Alcremie to choose. Because here's the thing. If you don't happen to know how or what Alcremie evolves into, like I do now, Alcremie has 63 different variations depending on what you feed it, where you feed it, and even the direction you spin in to evolve it. What the ever-loving heck is this Pokemon? I'm going crazy. Moving away from my several-hour debate to myself about which Alcremie he'd have, I went with the caramel variant with the orange flower decorations. Why the orange? Why not the blue? Here's the thing. I believe that when his Milcery evolved, he had just finished making something for his sister Cadenza, and had some leftover flower decorations that reminded him of her, that his little assistant just so happened to be holding. I actually really do love that concept, and I really like how this turned out, and I think it fits Laurance a little bit better than my first idea. Next up on our list of trainers is Garroth. At first, I gave Garroth a Riolu as a sort of placeholder until I found a proper fit, but in the same vein as Laurance, I was having a bit of trouble figuring it out. So, again, I asked Twitter in the same post I asked for my Laurance suggestions. My mutual Drya suggested Luxray because of its blue, yellow, and black color scheme, but the more I thought about it, the more I started to get behind the idea. Luxray's dex entry says that it can see through walls to help spot its prey, and I felt the dynamic between a character that breaks objects and one who can see through them was an interesting concept. Also, in the dex entry, specifically in Legends Arceus, it says that Luxray forms packs with one male as their leader, which reminded me of Garroth's role in the Romave Company or Royal Line, whatever series you were watching. Him having a Luxray feels like a lineage thing to me, and it works out very nicely in my head. I wanted to give Garroth's clothing a more athletic feel, since I believe he'd be more like a classic Pokemon trainer that's looking to challenge gyms in order to run away from his responsibility and his family. He has a really strong lightning bolt and electricity motif going on here, which I honestly wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting to make him full electric type stereotype, I guess, but it all kind of worked out in the end. His design was really fun to draw, and the pop of red in his shoes and armbands really helped round out his design. We're at the final two trainers, so let's kick it off with Dante. Dante is so different when it comes to looking at his My Street and Diaries counterpart, but the Pokemon I gave him ended up fitting both versions of him pretty well. I ended up giving Dante a Gallade as his partner. Gallade is very fittingly, the Blade Pokemon and the male equivalent to Gardevoir. There's more of a technicality to its evolution, but we'll skip that for now. What really matters is Gallade's personality. It's a pretty chivalrous Pokemon, and it's able to detect what a foe is thinking. I think that Dante grew up with this Pokemon and watched it evolve from a Ralts. I also think that Dante had no idea that his Ralts was male, and definitely thought he would get a Gardevoir. But when an accident happened with a loose Dawnstone, his Kirlia evolved into a Gallade completely by chance. I like to think that Dante's partnership with Gallade is a pretty rough one, considering Dante's track record with women, and Gallade would try to teach him to be better, but nothing really worked for a while. I'd honestly love to see that dynamic actually play out, but we've got one more trainer to go, so let's give it everything we've got. We're finally at the last trainer, and of course it's gonna be Jean. What did you expect? I sincerely apologize to all the characters that didn't get shown, but if people like this video, then I'll do it again with more characters. Anyway, Jean. I briefly talked about Jean and his design in my traditional art video, but for those who need a bit more info, Jean is a side character in Diaries and My Street who's seen running or is a part of an organization called the Shadow Knights. For this version, I ended up taking more inspiration from his My Street characterization. I am sorry, okay? It's just what I'm most familiar with. I made his partner Pokemon a Houndoom, not only because I feel like it makes the most sense with the Shadow Knight aesthetic, but because Houndooms are usually enemy Pokemon in the anime due to their dark typing. I made Jean's outfit really reflect Houndoom hard with the themed boots and themed hat, not to mention his leather jacket and his Pokeball strap looking suspiciously close to another character we saw earlier in the video. I wonder who that could be. It's just a coincidence, probably. Anyway, they both look super cool, and I'm grateful to know that this was the last trainer. These designs were so fun, and it took me 5 days straight of drawing to do this, but they all turned out pretty great in my humble opinion. If you'd like to see the full detailed drawings, they'll be updated to all my social medias, including my new Blue Sky account, so follow me everywhere if you want a closer look at these drawings. I also just wanted to say the Aphmau Standee pre-order was a huge success, and I could not be more grateful to the people who purchased them and are tagging me in their photos. Thank you so much. Also, another brief reminder that I'm going to be at Holiday Matsuri 2024 this month, so if you are planning on attending, I really hope to see you there. Please don't be afraid to say hi. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I am gonna go to sleep and prepare for the busy month I have ahead of me. Bye!